And we are live. This is the AFC Divisional Debates. Welcome to my Commissioner Evaluation Podcast. I'm John McGlynn, and you can find me on the Twitter machine at JohnMcGlynn75. I'd like to thank Nick Scripp at P2W Fantasy for letting me use his YouTube channel to produce these heated divisional debates. Today, I plan to have some real fun kicking off this 8-part series with some really sharp and talented content creators in this fantasy football industry. This week's show has Andy Singleton, People's Pen, Peter Howard at PA Howdy, Bob Gilchrist at Bob Gilchrist FF, and Jeremy Popolars at Popes FFH. About to square off and talk some fan passion and fantasy football goodness all wrapped into one. Let's get ready to rumble, fellas. Are we ready?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I thought that was a rhetorical question, so yes, let's go.
I was waiting for the.
I play to win, no fear to give. I feel but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best on trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Oh, play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win.
This is the AFC East Breakdown Showdown. Like we were talking about, we are all here together. We've got some great guys here. Let's start with introductions. Peter Howard. Everybody knows who you are already, but tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name's Peter Howard. Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Yeah, I write for Dynasty League Football, senior writer over there at DLF. And, I do spreadsheets and stuff. When do the Shark Fantasy analysts get here that you mentioned? Because that's what I didn't say nothing. I was waiting for him. I was waiting.
I thought there was some surprise guest coming on or something.
Yeah.
They are here.
All right.
That's the way he made it seem.
I assigned Peter to Dolphins to kind of help me out here because I'm no bias whatsoever here, but I'm a little bit of a Dolphins fan myself ever since the Dan Marino days. So me, Peter, in the Dolphins corner. Jeremy's taking the Bills, Andy's taking the Jets, Bob's taking the Patriots. So we are going to fight back and forth and find out who has the best depth chart in fantasy football, and we're going to fight about who's going to win this division.
Well, I mean, it's not really fair because it's the Patriots against the world because everyone still hates us. So
always.
No, I think we just more feel sorry for you at this point.
How can you feel sorry? How can you feel sorry for a team that just drafted the best rookie quarterback last year at the 15th pick, 16th pick, something like that?
Davis Mills is on the Texans.
I'm gonna hang up and listen. I mean, come on. Mac Jones had an amazing year last year. For a rookie that was drafted behind the so-called football Jesus, Trevor Lawrence. You got Trey Lance that everyone wanted, Justin Fields everyone wanted. Mac Jones had the best numbers out of all of them. He had better numbers than Tua. He had a better completion percentage than Josh Allen. He had Zach Wilson. Does he even play quarterback anymore?
It's Mike White.
Mike White is the starter. That's the depth chart. All right. So, I mean, it's clearly the Patriots are in a great position with some young talent, and they have the best coach.
Bob, introduce yourself. Tell everybody about yourself here. Tell me about yourself, where you're from.
I'm nothing. I post some things on Dynasty Trade Calculator here and there, and you can just find me usually leaving comments in Peter's live streams, and
we all do that.
Trying to always help raise money for charities. Right now, I'm helping John Bosch with the Eliminators. We are rocking. I think we're up to like 130 leagues right now, and they are still going. So if you haven't signed up for any, go find John Bosch FF on Twitter and sign up for a few eliminators. Make a donation.
Started the John Paulson one this morning, or so I'm already in that. I'm signed up for a couple more. I'm waiting for him to start. So these are good every year. I have fun with them. It's a nice. The chats are already off the hook, and a couple of these. In the one league I'm in already anyway. And last year they were awesome. So, Jeremy, tell me about yourself a little bit. Where they can find you in the Twitter machine. What's going on? All the stuff you do.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at PopesFFH. I write articles over at FTN, Sports Gambling Podcast. Do some stuff with Yards Per. Haven't really done a lot lately with them, but yeah. I mean, I'm on Twitter. I can answer questions, anything like that. Send them over. Do a lot of rookie stuff, but that draft is obviously come and gone. So at this moment, I'm just kind of answering questions and putting out some articles. So,
Andy, how about yourself? I haven't been on a podcast with you in a while.
Yeah, I appreciate you saving the best for last. Some shots fired already, right out of the gate.
I got a little anxious.
All good. Yeah. So I've been in this for a bit. I started expanding the box score a few years back. I've done things with pretty much all of you. I kind of downshifted a little this year. This first year, I didn't do any draft content really. Just was getting a little fed up with the climate of everything going on, and got into coaching. So I'm coaching with the FDNY football team, which, as you guys know, I'm career firefighter, 20 plus years and going. So kind of opening. It's like real deal. It's like the USFL. So it's friends and people I've been working with for a while. So I'm having a lot of fun doing that, and just kind of getting to take a back seat to everything that's going on. Watching all the content you guys are continuing to pump out. So it's been great. Appreciate getting an occasional invite like tonight. I am a bitter Jet fan for a long time. I actually happened to run into Robert Saleh about a week and a half, 2 weeks before the draft. So I was hanging out with him, and was happy to see that we do have the right coach finally. This guy's completely the real deal. And then we drafted right. And I know it's you could sit there in hindsight and say, well, how could you have screwed that up? Believe me, you could screw that up, and we've done it in the past.
Yeah.
So the fact that everybody seems to universally agree that this was a pretty good draft for the Jets. It's exciting times in New York, and this is in some regards not that horrible of a division as it's been in the last couple of years. So a lot of excitement, and I really don't know. I mean, obviously we think is the favorite, but these teams are a lot more competitive than you might think.
Yeah, it's been great for the AFC East. The Lions had a great draft. The Jets had a great draft. All around, it was I think a lot of people in spots that people were kind of concerned with, but for the most part, this was a really good draft. I had a wedding actually on draft night 1 and 2, so it really this is the first time I've been to
You had a 2-night wedding?
If you know what the worst part about it was,
they're in it for the long haul.
Wow, yeah.
Thursday was the wedding reception and Friday was the wedding. I was thinking to myself, this is okay because Thursday I'll miss day 1. There shouldn't be too much action going on. Day 2 is the real day. And I'm like, oh, most weddings are on Saturday. And the wedding ended up being on Friday. And I'm like, son of a biscuit. This is bullshit. I'm going to miss the whole draft. I missed all the good parts. So
day 1 was the exciting one.
Yeah, it ended up being, it was kind of reverse from what I thought. But I went to Tennessee for the draft before. The draft was in Chicago. I actually worked across the street from where the draft was setting up. So day 1, when the first NFL truck pulled up, all the way till the last day when everything was getting cleaned up, and the last NFL truck pulled away from the draft zone downtown Chicago, I was able to take lunch every day and just walk around, see it start being built up, and watch. I took my whole family there when the draft was going on. They had all kind of stuff for kids there. It was an awesome setup. So I go to drafts everything I possibly can. I was with Mike Teglier and Fantasy Pros a couple years ago. We went to Tennessee. It was a great time. It was awesome. It was a really good. The draft is. Some people don't like the draft, so I'm a huge draft fan. I like the experience. I like all the stuff going on, but it was one of those days where it's one of those days you just can't miss. So, all right. So we had talked. Bob jumped in already. Talked a little bit about the Patriots quarterback situation. Peter, tell me about the Dolphins quarterback situation.
Who? Oh yeah, it's pretty lit. We got a third-year quarterback who's top of his class with two of the best wide receivers in the NFL. It's great. I'm such the wrong person to try and stump for a team. No, Tua Tagovailoa. Best thing you can say about him is that he hasn't quite yet hit his potential. He does rush. He's been fairly accurate at passing the ball, both in college and in the NFL, and just got a major upgrade at pretty much every position that catches the ball. So, he's ranked higher in Dynasty than in redraft, which kind of shows our hope that he can finally hit the ceiling we saw for him back in the Tank for Tua days.
He's very accurate. He's got a lot of good receivers right now. I know there's a clip coming out of him underthrowing Tyreek Hill, and ever since then, every clip has been the most accurate pass you ever see in your life in practice going on right now. But I'm expecting Tua's very accurate. He doesn't throw a lot of deep balls, and I think the only time he does throw deep balls is when guys are wide open. That's why he's got such a deep accurate rate. But he's a dink and dunker. He's always been that way. He's he's an efficient quarterback. I'm a Dolphins fan. That's why I brought the best in the business to kind of come help me out, support the Dolphins here. So I'm looking forward to that situation. So, Andy, tell me about the Jets. I love Zach Wilson. Tell me why I should love Zach Wilson, or tell me what's going to happen with the Jets this year and why Zach's going to lead them to greatness.
Well, that makes one of us because I've been down on Zach Wilson. I never wanted them to draft him. I wanted Trey Lance. It is what I even wanted Mac Jones more than Zach Wilson. But it is what it is. I do think he has potential and capabilities. He has arguably the best receiving depth in this division. So when you look at elite high production or potential, I should say, obviously they're still waiting to do it and prove some consistency. But I mean, the sky's the limit for him. They've given him every possible thing you could want, from surrounding him with free agent moves. Dress years to beef and bolster up the line with receiving weapons. I mean, let's not forget the two tight ends they signed, and then they go and draft Rucker, who a lot of people enjoy as well and think he has some upside as a receiver at the next level in the NFL. But I mean, that's the high end. The low end is that this guy's going to continue to be a gunslinger, is going to continue to just want to work out of context and just drive coaches crazy and just not lead the offense and just kind of idle. So year two, a lot of expectations for him. I mean, I think it's still a little too early to kind of write him off, but I'm optimistic. We'll put it like that. He's got everything in his power to lead this team. So if he is what they thought he was when they drafted him number 2 overall, then this is the year we'll see it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to see him go down a Drew Lock path and just kind of be a gunslinger and YOLO ball and then just shit his opportunity away. But I'm just hoping that at the end of the year last year he did really well. So I'm hoping that carries over into this year too. I like when the AFC East is good. I'm an AFC East fan, obviously from, like I said, from the Dan Marino days, but I'm an AFC East fan. I like to see the competition great, and literally every team is improving. And it's always been some team. There's 2 shitty teams in the Patriots or 3 shitty teams in the Patriots. It's nice to see all these teams in the AFC East finally coming back. It's like when I grew up back in the day. The Jets were awesome. The Patriots were good. They went to the Super Bowl with the Bears. The Bills were good. They had, the Jim Kelly days were fantastic. It feels like back in the day, it's like reviving itself to this being a really good division. I'm hoping big things here. I'm looking forward to the future of the AFC East. Jeremy, you kind of have a 85-mile-an-hour batting practice fastball coming at you right now, but tell me about Josh Allen here.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, I guess you could say probably the best quarterback fantasy-wise in this AFC East. Pretty much the quarterback won in redraft dynasty all over for fantasy. But like Bob had mentioned earlier, we did see him regress a little bit in his completion percentage last year. Through almost 100 more footballs than the year before. So that could be part of the completion percentage issue. But it's definitely going to be an interesting year, I think, for him. He loses Brian Daboll this year, so it's a little concerning. Ken Dorsey's coming in. I think it's going to kind of be a similar offense, but I am a little bit worried on the play calling aspect of the game. So there is some concern here a little bit for me with Josh Allen that we might see a slight regression. just because of that. We also might see him run the ball a lot less. The Bills have been advocating for that for the last couple of years, that they kind of want to get him away from taking those hits and necessarily running on script versus the off script plays that he makes, those quarterback sweeps that they run, the goal line stuff that they run to avoid some of these hits. I mean, he had 122 rushes last year. He almost had 1,000, 760 yards rushing. So I think if you see that step back, you're also going to see him step back in that fantasy realm. He might fall from quarterback one just because they take away some of that rushing upside that he has in the designed runs. But I still think he's probably the best quarterback in this group, partially Homer-ish. But, I still don't believe too much in Zach Wilson. Kind of like Andy had said, there's a little bit of just that kind of question mark with him. I know he got a little bit beefier this offseason. Maybe that'll help. He gets a little bulky, feels a little better. But and I like Mac Jones. I don't see the ceiling with Mac Jones for fantasy. I think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback for the Patriots in the system they run. Fantasy-wise, I just don't see him being much more than like that low-end QB1. And Tua, I think, is a good one. I think that should be interesting too. So,
yeah, it's good across the board. It's good across the board here. And there's optimistic anyway in all four camps here. So that's a great problem to have with having a bright future, which a lot of these teams haven't seen in a while. It's a pretty nice situation here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to jump to the running back situation. So I'm going to go over the running backs for each team, and then we'll individually start talking about beefing up the case here. Like you said already, pass catching quarterback in Buffalo, James Cook. And then we got Singletary, who pretty much carried a load last year. I'm a Zach Moss guy. I was a Zach Moss truther. That kind of blew up my face last year. But they got Duke Johnson, Tywan Jones, Raheem Blackshear. I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but they have James Cook. We're looking at a guy who is probably going to be a running quarterback's not really option, but a dump off receiver, which we haven't seen too much of that from Josh Allen. So we'll see what's up. Then the Dolphins, we got Chase Edmonds, Myles Gaskin, Zaquandre Wright, Raheem Mostert, Jared Doak, Selvin Ahmed, Alec Ingold, and then who did Sony Michel is there now too. So that's a deep depth chart. They're gonna probably have to cut some of these guys. At least, I don't know who they're going to keep or what's going to be the guy, but it's nice to have a lot of good options in the backfield. With the Patriots, we got Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris, J.J. Taylor, James White. They're just a running team that plays good defense. So those are really good options across the board on that team. And then the Jets drafted Breece Hall. You got Michael Carter, Zonovan Knight, Ty Johnson, Tevin Coleman, LaMichael Pirine. It's pretty much top heavy on the Jets depth chart here, but it's nice to have a guy like Breece Hall in camp to go ahead with Michael Carter and lead this team to the promised land. So start off, Peter, tell me about the Dolphins depth chart. What do you see with these guys, and what do you think is going to happen? What's going to shake out in this camp?
Yeah, let's start off by admitting that just because you can name 20 players doesn't mean that the depth chart's deep. Like every team has like 50 players. That doesn't mean it's a deep depth chart. Miami's the only team with 3 players ranked in the top 12 in both redraft and dynasty. It's the only team with actually interesting skill position players, although I do appreciate Kendrick Bourne and personally like him. That's about it. Buffalo is, you're selling you're selling something boring, frankly. Yeah, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are very good, and they're going to put up points. Please don't try and convince me that Devin Singletary and Zach Moss are interesting anymore. I think we're past that point, and don't get me excited about their very new small running back receiving option, James Cook. If we're talking about depth charts and skill position players, it's Miami, and I'm selling the future and hope. And all of you are boring and stuck in the past, and that's my statement. There you go.
There we go. Shots fired across the board. That's what we're here for, boys. Thanks, Pete. That's exactly what we're here for. All right, so Andy, talking about the Jets.
The Jets got, again, arguably – the Jets literally landed arguably the best wide receiver in the class, arguably the best rusher in the class. the best running back in the class. I mean, arguably the best cornerback in the class. This is why everybody's praising their class. So you bring Breece Hall in, and you didn't really have to pay a significant premium to get him. It's a win. Again, this goes back to what this offense is going to be. I want to touch on, you were talking about Buffalo and, what's going on with their running game. I was pounding the table for them to take Kenneth Gainwell last year. I think he was tailor-made for their offense and the type of blocking they get from the line. It was nice to see them go out and get James Cook. I think that's a definite bump for them. But one of the reasons the Patriots have been so successful is just the guy at the top of the pyramid. So you have some turmoil in Buffalo. Ken Dorsey moves from quarterbacks coach to OCs, new play caller. You're going to have some transition there. Should it be okay? Yeah, it should be okay. But, obviously we'll see what plays out. I think that's one of the other things I like about the Jets. They're heading into some stability year 2 with the same OC, year 2 with the same head coach. Now getting pieces from veterans. They have some rookies. They have some upside. They have some all-world potential. I definitely think this could easily be. I mean, Michael Carter was ready to be the starter. We weren't even expecting Breece Hall to be on this team, and people were enamored with Michael Carter. Now he moves to your backup and your RB2 in this offense. So, this is another position you can look back at the end of the season and say, at this and wide receiver and maybe even tight end, the Jets arguably have the best depth at position of running backs in this division.
Yeah, it's I'm a huge Michael Carter guy, so when they drafted Breece Hall, I was kind of like, I just paid everywhere to move up to get Michael Carter, and I got that my entire fantasy roster just shit on. So I was like, son of a, it is what it is. I'm not going to get Breece Hall anywhere, and I don't have 101, 102 anywhere unless I get rid of half my team to move up, and that's not going to happen. So I'm still expecting production from Michael Carter. So
one more thing on Breece Hall, though, just because my personal take on him, since that is the lead guy here. This was the guy Montgomery being, that's great superstar running back, and Breece Hall was arguably better than David Montgomery. So for him to kind of fall into where he fell to be able to be drafted and come to this offense, pure upside.
Yeah. Yes. Jeremy, talk to me about the Bills.
All right, well, I'm not going to try to convince you that they're the best running back room. I can tell you that. But, I mean, Devin Singletary did have 11.6 PPR points as like a per-game average last year, which was more than Chase Edmonds. And it was only, 3 points behind Damian Harris, who was like the top guy out of this division. So Buffalo's still interesting to me. I really do think Zach Moss and Devin Singletary are pretty much dead for fantasy value. I think Devin Singletary might see some work on first and second down, but he really made his money with almost the passing game. He kind of had more work in that aspect of it for fantasy value. It was in like the screens and the dump offs. And I mean, he had some bigger runs near the end of the season, but like it was really in the passing game, and that's what's going to hurt him. I mean, James Cook, they bring him in. They wanted J.D. McKissick, who was basically signed and then stolen away. So they're bringing in James Cook to beat J.D. McKissick, and we've seen J.D. McKissick have a ton of fantasy value in Washington, and I know it was more of a dump-off type quarterback, but the Bills are also kind of short in the wide receiver position. It's a team that ran a lot of 4 wide receiver last year, and you could argue they don't have 4 startable wide receivers. So you could see James Cook line up out wide a lot. He did it at Georgia at times. He's a pretty good route runner. So I could see where you have James Cook and Singletary or Moss on the field at the same time. So I feel like there's value here. I think that a lot of them are kind of getting overrated to the point of like James Cook is getting slightly overdrafted in a lot of leagues, at least in dynasty leagues, I should say. I haven't, yeah. I think he's worth the late first just because of the rest of the class. If you're a really running back needy team, like a late first round pick and a rookie draft isn't the end of the world. If I'm picking him, Sky Moore, or Christian Watson, like, I mean, both those guys have some pretty big uphill battles as far as competition goes. Right. And arguably how raw are these guys and how good are they going to be? I mean, you're taking your stab if you need a running back, I'm not going to fault anybody for doing that. So I think there's potential there, but I'm definitely not going to say they're the best room. I'm going to defer to Breece Hall, obviously, or the Patriots, who have like 5 running backs who could start on every single one of these teams probably. So,
well, what a coincidence. Bob's up next, and he could talk about the Patriots running backs.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Damian Harris, I had believed in him a couple seasons ago and was picking him up, whether it was for like a late second or just getting him thrown into other deals, just to get him on my rosters. He was clearly going to start to take over that backfield. And then they go ahead and drafted Stevenson last year. And I mean, he's a truck. He kind of reminds me of LeGarrette Blount around the goal line. And then now this year they added Strong and Harris to the backfield. But I could see them both, taking a redshirt year, similar to the Harris route, that being behind Sony Michel, and Stevenson was forced into action a little bit last year with the James White injury, and James White will be back, and he's clearly the third down back, which, I mean, he's amazing with those short passes and around the goal line. He just finds a way to sneak in. I think we saw that a couple times in the Super Bowl and playoff games against the Chiefs and stuff like that. I have bad memory, but
what's the Super Bowl?
But I definitely. I mean, that's Belichick style football. Is strong defense, hold the ball, move 3 yards, cloud of dust, 4 yards, cloud of dust, first down, just, milk that clock down. He doesn't care if he wins 9-6. It's a W.
It's a dub. That's right. Big Bill. I can't stand Bill Belichick. He's him and, he's being, I got to see, the 85 Bears steamroll the Patriots back in the day. So that memory will be with me forever. But it was just, ever since then, it's been, I don't know what 19 years of Tom Brady just rolling over the AFC East. So it's.
I still think Tom Brady is the most winning quarterback at Ralph Wilson Stadium. I'm just saying. So don't even get me started about getting steamrolled by the Patriots.
I think it's actually close between him and Bledsoe.
Yeah, I don't know.
And that's only because Bledsoe was
played for the Patriots.
Played for the Bills.
I'm going to switch over.
No, sorry. I was going to say I'm kind of getting the moniker of growing soft in my old age, but after hating the Patriots and Bill Belichick for so many years, I'm kind of starting to respect them more and more. I mean, this is 2021, 2022. The guy let his quarterback throw 3 times in a game, because that was the smart play. I mean, we just at some point, we just don't give things like this enough credit, So you just got to respect that and tip your hat at some point.
Well, that and 85 on-hour wins kind of helped that situation, but it was that was kind of a crazy game. But I get it.
Sean McDermott still was like, what, Josh, just throw it.
I get it.
So at what point is smart versus stupid the right?
I mean, also, how many coaching changes has Belichick gone through underneath him, and they've gone other places? I mean, not that any of them have been really successful at any of the jobs that they've taken, but like you said earlier, it is a big deal when you change an offensive coordinator or you change a defensive coordinator. And the Patriots are constantly just promoting guys within the system, from special teams up to OC, up to DC, and he's growing his own. He grows his own coaches rather than going out and finding another coach.
Yeah,
he has to be just the most amazing. I mean, I already know it from his winning record, his rings, but I couldn't imagine, just like you said, planting these seeds of coaches, bringing them up through the ranks, and having them just kind of do exactly the way Bill Belichick wants them to do things. Nothing more, nothing less. Just get the job done. I mean, it is amazing to see the Patriots just keep chugging through these years with all the changes they have with player personnel, with coaching, with anything going on, and still winning ball games. It's being at that level too. So It is respect, like you said, Andy. It's absolute respect for the guy, and there's nothing. Hate him or not, it is an absolute respect situation. So
right, and now that Brady is not on the Patriots, I am noticing that people are like, all right, I guess he was pretty good.
They did a lot better than expected last year with Mac Jones. So I was expecting that entire system to just collapse, and they did a lot better than I thought they were going to do. So I get it.
No receivers.
Right. Well, we're about to talk about that right now. So let's do some on the left side of the field. We got some receivers who, generally speaking, I mean, these guys move all over the place, but lined up left side of the field. We got on the Bills side, we got Stephon Diggs, Jake Kumaro, and Paul Neal on the left side for the Bills. For the Dolphins, we have Tyreek Hill, Preston Williams, Eric Ezukama, and Braylon Sanders. For the Patriots, we got Devontae Parker and Christian Wilkinson and Nelson Aguilar, the ghost of Nelson Aguilar. And then for the Jets, we got Corey Davis, who I think is very underrated. Denzel Mims, who is having the camp of his life. Tariq Black and Kashawn Abram. So we got some depth here on the left side of the field for these teams. Let's talk about that. Who do we think has the best situation here? So, Andy, why don't you start with the Jets situation?
It's hard to not sound like a homer when you're talking about your own, hometown team you've been a fan of for all these years. But just looking at these depth charts, like you said, if you put Josh Allen on this team, it'd be a no-brainer, right? So we're talking about Zach Wilson, but when you look at the talent, that a lot of people in this community loved as a flyer, as a dynasty stash, as a guy with the upside to be something. He's having a time of his life right now because he's fighting for his wide receiver 5 on the team. He's fighting for a roster spot at this point. Barrios is signed. They added him. Obviously, he's going to be more of a special teams and a returner. But your top 3 spots are locked up, barring a trade of Corey Davis, which probably isn't going to happen. Not at that contract. But Mims is fighting for the 5th wide receiver in the room. That's the depth of this team. So I think you got to give it to them, going away. I was kind of poking fun at the Patriots not having any receivers last year. They do have veterans. That's what they are. And they added another one in Devontae Parker, who I've always loved and been kind of a fan on. But this is like the poor man's depth of position when you look at Parker, Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar. These are all throwaways. And then you got Tyquan Thornton, who everybody thinks was the biggest reach of the entire NFL draft. So Bill must be up to something. We're just praising and tipping our hats to Bill Belichick. And if he's right, nobody had him pegged, then what's he see that we don't? So on the flip side of that coin, though, is the Bills have never been able to draft wide receivers well with any success. So, maybe it's exactly what we see. But honestly, and it's not just me being a Jets homer, I think this is easily the most talent in the division at this position from top to bottom. So I know it's the Jets, but times are changing.
We got more to talk about there. I'm going to let my dogs in real fast. Jeremy, tell me about Stephon Diggs, Jake Kumaro, Tanner Gentry, and Paul Neal.
Yeah, I mean, it's Stephon Diggs. That's about all we got to talk about right there. I mean, he's arguably, he's probably what you could argue him as the second best, maybe third best wide receiver in the AFC East. I think Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle probably fantasy-wise are a little bit better. But it's going to be Diggs' show in Buffalo as far as that goes on the left side. The other 2 guys are just going to be depth guys that are kind of meh. So, but I like your point, Andy. I think Denzel Mims is a guy that I targeted a lot last year. And he's a guy that I liked coming out. I really hope he lands. I also kind of hope, maybe he gets traded. Maybe they do move him because you are right. They have a ton of receivers now in New York with Garrett Wilson, Moore, etc. So I wouldn't hate to see Denzel Mims get moved. I don't know if he will or where, but I'd like to see him get a shot again where he's actually healthy, and outside of COVID season or him having COVID or his injuries, so. But yeah, it's Diggs, and that's about it as far as it goes on the left side for the Bills.
Well, can I ask you, and I don't mean to put my host hat on here, especially not on my show, but I just did a Gabe Davis little kind of preview for the Roto Underworld draft guide, and I feel like he's a very polarizing player because I think people are just expecting him to double his production to this point. How do you guys feel about Gabe Davis, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about Davis. I don't care. I was kind of just
talk
going
about
with what John went
division.
with, the whole John went with the whole right or left side, so I went with that. But I like Gabe Davis a lot. I think he's a good option. I just think though that like the way that the Bills are set up, I mean, they could have two viable options. I think that a lot of people are a little bit too high on Gabe Davis, just remembering that Kansas City game where he blew up, which is an option. I mean, if you have double coverage or something on Diggs, but I just feel like Diggs is kind of the guy they try to force the ball to, and Josh doesn't really care. He just throws it to him and hopes for the best. So I think Davis is a good option. I just don't know if he's going to reach what everybody thinks he's going to become. I think maybe top 24, maybe low end of that. But, I mean, he's probably going to be a top 36 guy, which isn't a bad option, obviously. You're usually starting 3 to 4, 5 wide receivers, depending on how your leagues are set up. So I do like him as an option. I just think he's a little bit expensive. I mean, the upside's there if he stays for a long time. But I don't know.
Basically exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a huge Gabe Davis fan before. I had him on a lot of rosters, and then I started losing faith and selling him off a little bit. And then he exploded in the playoffs, and I'm like, man, if I would have held on to him for like 3 more weeks, I could have sold him at like peak value for after he scored 4 touchdowns and everybody thought he was Superman. I'm like, sometimes timing in fantasy football is everything, and that's I missed the boat on that situation. So, it is what it is. But
I mean, one thing about Denzel Mims is he has been teammates with Corey Davis, and it wouldn't be a show without mentioning Corey Davis with Peter Howard on it. And he can get a little coaching on how to get that contract on those 5th-year breakouts. So if you can grab Denzel Mims still for a 4th, it might be worth it.
Yeah,
5th-year breakouts.
Bob, tell me about the situation you got here.
All right. Well, so we've got the Miami retread with Devontae Parker. We've got the Philadelphia, Las Vegas retread with Nelson Aguilar. We have the best wide receiver from 2 years ago in the draft, N'Keal Harry. We're hoping he has a 5th-year breakout. I mean, the left side. I mean, Devontae Parker. He's shown flashes here and there. The consistency's not there, but they're not really worried about passing downfield so much. They'll utilize the tight ends and they'll utilize the slot more. They're more for stretching the field just to keep the defense honest. Mac Jones isn't going to be launching it downfield.
No,
we're
not expecting that at all.
Which is surprising. The moves that Miami made is a couple of downfield guys, and Tua's not throwing it downfield either.
I saw the videotapes lately. He's a lot more accurate than that underthrown pass we saw originally on that.
Yeah, did you see that? They're looking for a new social media.
Yes.
Post.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Dolphins, we got with left wide receivers here. Pete, we got Tyreek Hill, Preston Williams, Eric Azuna, and Braylon Sanders. Tell me about why the Dolphins have the best left side wide receiver in the league.
I just replay all of that and the complete lack of energy in anyone trying to town him. I mean, yeah, we can bet on 4th and 5th year breakout wide receivers. That sounds like a lot of fun, guys. Or we could get Tyreek Hill broke out in his 2nd year as an undrafted free agent, not a 1st-round pick or busted out who might finish in the 5th round. I mean, how about just that guy? Or how about Jalen Waddle, who broke out also in his 1st year and had one of the best rookie seasons ever outside Jamar Chase since 2014? We could just like those 2 guys. That sound like an option? No, yeah, Corey Davis is pretty cool. I think as far as depth charts, potential. Oh, I forgot. Josh Allen, who's now good because he got Stephon Diggs, whereas 2 are getting 2 great wide receivers, probably doesn't have relevance here. No, let's go back to the sleepy talk about how great Bill Belichick is and the wonder of maybe a 5th-year breakout. That sounds great. I'll just keep looking at Miami. That seems pretty good to me. Not to mention Mike Gesicki, who's been an underrated tight end in fantasy ADP, I guess, for a long time, but has consistently been a top 12 tight end. So that's good too. So yeah, all that sounds great, guys. But I like the team with 3 elite receiving options, if that's okay.
Yes. Let's go to the right side here. Jeremy, we'll start with Gabe Davis. We just talked about Shakir.
Sorry, who's the
Isaiah
third? You're saying just like
Gesicki, Waddle, Hill,
The
Yeah,
Tyreek Hill guy.
Hill and Waddle. I get that.
and
Miles
Gesicki.
Gaskin.
You want to tell me about the great tight end
Oh.
on one of your own teams?
Nope, mine's not good.
Compare
No, I heard you.
stats.
I heard you talk about it. But I just didn't know.
No,
didn't know we were
Gronk
putting
went
him
with the
in
other
elite
great player
category.
from this. Yeah, pretty much to the tight end position.
All right.
What else you got?
Well,
I
let's
guess
go.
you're
Let's stick to the right side here, and we'll go Jeremy, Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir, Isaiah Hodgkins, and then we got the Dolphins, Jalen Waddle, Trent Sherfield. These are just depth guys. Cody Core, the Patriots, Tyquan Thornton, Kendrick Bourne, Trey Nixon, and then Garrett Wilson, Jeff Smith, and Rodney Adams, and Irvin Charles. If I never heard of him before, but let's see, Jeremy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we talked about Gabe Davis a little bit before. I like you're shooting ceiling with Gabe Davis, hoping you're getting that high-end production that we saw in the playoffs. I think he's a good route runner. I think he does things well down the field. He gets open. He's good along the sidelines. I'm just not sold on him being much more than a top 24 wide receiver, and the price that you have to pay for him right now is a little high. So I don't hate him. And then I like Khalil Shakir a lot. I think he brings a different aspect to this wide receiver group that the Bills don't have. He's a little bit more physical. He's been used in the run game at Boise State. I think he's a dark horse to become that wide receiver 3. Arguably, like I said earlier, that wide receiver 4 that the Bills use a lot. I think depending on how his camp goes, depending on how he looks and how it goes, I think he has a chance. He's going to probably get pushed in how Gabe Davis did. You'll start to see a little bit of him in his rookie season, and then that second year he might get brought in a little bit more just because they don't necessarily need him. But an injury to Jamison Crowder or something like that definitely could open the door. Even an injury up top, Diggs or Gabe go down. I mean, they might call upon him sooner than later. As far as Isaiah Hodgins go, we didn't see a lot of him last year because of an injury. I don't think you're going to see a lot out of him. I think he's kind of just a depth guy for them. And then, I don't remember who you said the other guy is, but I think he's just a special teams guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, Bob, we're going to go to Tyquan Thornton, Kendrick Bourne, Trey Nixon. Tell me about those guys.
Well, I mean, Kendrick Bourne, all I ever see him do is catch touchdowns. Even back in the San Francisco days, he's one of those guys that you just plug him in once in a while on your roster, and he happens to score a touchdown. So he's okay to have at the back of your bench to just plug in on bye weeks. He's not an every week starter. Tyquan Thornton, I'm interested to see what is going on there because I was as shocked as everyone else was about the pick.
Yeah.
Seeing who else I believe went after him. Trey Nixon, I didn't he play for the Red Sox? No idea about Trey Nixon. It sounds like a camp cut to me.
Yeah, probably. Peter, tell me about Jalen Waddle, Trent Sherfield, and this guy Cody Core, who, we'll see what happens there.
Nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nah. I'll pass. That's fine. They did not add a lot of interesting depth this year.
No, they did not.
Outside of the trade.
No. Skylar Thompson, Condre Wright, Zeke Azuma, stuff like that. That's Tanner Connor. They did not add a lot of depth at all for the offense. They got some good pieces up top.
That New England pick, I had no idea who that guy was. I had to look him up. But couldn't Zach Reed, Dynasty Dummies, he went and watched his tape. Apparently that's a thing you can do. You can watch these players. Did you know that?
You have to have a house that gets cable or
yeah, that's not.
You can't be in the middle of Kentucky.
Yeah. I just keep sending these here smoke signals in, Bob.
You put up the aluminum foil to get these live streams going.
I was going to say, yeah, apparently he can do some things. I don't know what that translates to, but apparently he was pretty interested in his skill set. And I assume that means down the field, which is, like Bob said, an area Matt can certainly use help with. So it's interesting. But yeah, that's it. Not a lot of depth in the AFC East ads, to be honest.
No. Well, there was some depth added for the Jets here. Garrett Wilson, and they got Jeff Smith, Rodney Adams, Irvin Charles. I don't know those guys, but the top of the depth chart with Garrett Wilson was a huge ad. So, Andy, tell me about Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I'm just realizing how I screwed this whole thing up. When he went to me first, I thought we were just doing the whole position. I feel like I'm playing the Red Sox are playing fantasy baseball. We're starting a designated center fielder, left fielder, as opposed to just straight outfielder. So I apologize for that. Best in class, yes, I will agree with Peter on this one, Waddle. But Wilson could be right there. I mean, this is basically the same guy Waddle was a year ago at the same point, arguably top receiver in the class. So why not? Why can't he be that? Well, why can't he be? Because of Zach Wilson. So we'll see what happens.
Well, N'Keal Harry was too.
Yes, of course. N'Keal Harry was
top of the class.
He was generational talent. It was a different class. This is a different class, Bob. But yeah, this easily is historically worse. Yeah, this potentially could be the top rookie wide receiver of the year. So how could you not love the depth?
Jameson Williams is my favorite in this class. But, Garrett Wilson is right behind him.
Yeah, now you got me confused. Now you got me talking Jameson. It's Garrett. Anyway, Garrett.
Oh.
Wide receiver 1.
All right. Wide receiver 1. It's Jameson Williams is my wide receiver 1 in the long term, but Wilson's right behind him, so I get it. So let's talk about where people make their bread and butter money here, and talk about the slot receiver situation. So the Bills, you got Jameson Crowder, Isaiah McKenzie, Marquez Stevenson, Malik Williams, a draft pick here. Dolphins got Lynn Bowden, Ryan River Craycraft, and Devontae Dedman. I don't know who that guy even is. Then the Patriots got Jacoby Myers, Matthew Slater, Malcolm Perry, Ty Montgomery. And the Jets got Elijah Moore, Braxton Barrios, who I love, who kind of almost won me a fantasy football championship last year with his return yards, and Calvin Jackson. So the slot receiver, start out with Bob. Tell me about the Patriots slot receiver situation.
Positive regression. There's no way that Jacoby Myers is not going to score more touchdowns this year.
No way.
There is no way.
I'm having flash weeks to every week in DFS.
Exactly. The fact that he just was never in the end zone. It was
never.
I think they were on like a 2-year count that he had never caught a touchdown pass.
It's crazy.
Partially because of Cam Newton, but he's made a great ad for the Patriots, and he does make some tough catches across the middle. So I definitely have tried to roster him as much as possible. Without overpaying, obviously. There's a limit to any Patriot receiver, because Malcolm Perry could score 3 in a game.
Could happen.
James White does exist. It's fine.
And James White steals everything. And I know we're moving on to tight ends next, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, Peter, tell me about the new addition, Cedric Wilson and Lynn Bowden, who that was Ryan McDowell's guy until he wasn't the guy anymore, and then a bunch of nobodies after that. But tell me about Cedric Wilson. Why that addition of Cedric Wilson is so important for the Dolphins depth chart?
I don't know. It might be from NFL terms. I have no idea. As far as I know, Mike Gesicki is actually the slot receiver there.
Right.
He mostly plays receiver. He doesn't really play much at tight end. He's got a slot rate of like 62%. That's how he gets on the field and is utilized, and has 1.6 yards per route run and stuff. That's what he does for them. He fills out the slot role. Not much of a tight end, more of a slot receiver.
And I really like
with those numbers.
Probably
with
Cedric
those
Wilson's
numbers,
probably.
would you still feel he was elite as a slot receiver?
Well, that's how you define it, man. I mean, was Jason Witten elite? The guy's been a top 12 tight end for 3 years. In terms of fantasy, yeah. I mean, are we really excited about Noah Fant? He's got all the athleticism and finally had a top 12 season last year, and it didn't feel great. I mean, everyone thinks tight end is hard. It's simpler. You just call Mike Gesicki elite. That's what
It's
elite
simple.
is.
It's Kyle
That's what I'm
Pitts.
talking about.
And then you have the upper tier that you're actually searching for. There's maybe Kyle Pitts is looking
It's
good.
Kyle
If you
Pitts.
catch
That's it.
a single touchdown. A lot of touchdown problems from Bob players.
Yeah,
And
well,
then-
positive regression. 2022
There you
is my
go.
year.
I'm in. It's mathematical. It has to happen, right? But yeah, I think in terms of a tight end and what he does, especially a receiver tight end, which is more Kyle Pitts, Evan Ingram, there's not many that's been near as good for fantasy as Mike Gesicki. We just hate it because it's Mike Gesicki.
I think
Andy,
Mike
tell me-
Gesicki is just the boom bust thing that everybody hates. You know, 1 week he gets you a 0, the next week he gets you 25. It made him hard to start.
Yeah.
That was what it was last year. That was the
Yeah,
problem, I think, that killed him.
Even
That's
though we're not at
tough
tight
ends,
end,
man.
we're not at tight
I
end.
know, I know
We're
it's
talking
tight
slot
end.
receivers. Get out of
I
here.
know. Well, he's a slot receiver. We
Oh, well-
acknowledged that with Peter.
Just
That Mike Gesicki
established
is
As
the
a-
slot guy.
As a slot receiver, he can function in your tight end spot.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
He's
And,
not getting-
yeah.
He's getting
Except-
paid as a tight end, not a slot receiver. So
Except when it
just-
comes
Like
to
those
contract
rich
time.
times when you can start your running back and the wide receiver and stuff. It's positional advantage, man. You just got to.
right, exactly. Andy, tell me about Elijah Moore. I mean, you got the best receiving core here to talk about all three situations. So Elijah Moore, and then you got like Calvin Jackson behind, or Braxton Barrios and Calvin Jackson. There's a lot of talent on with just Elijah Moore and Braxton Barrios. How do you feel about these guys? And don't stop making fun of my guy Zach Wilson here. Just talk good about my.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, Elijah Moore, I was down on him initially last year, and then I came around, and I mean, this guy is dynamic, and you saw it on draft night last year. AJ breaking down, crying, telling him, "You're better than me." DK knew you were better than me. I knew you were better than me. You were the best of the three that we had at Ole Miss. Like, yeah, that wasn't contrived either. That was like real, genuine, heartfelt emotions from an All-Pro already receiver. So that's what this guy's potential is, and that's what we got here in New York. And this is now second option 2A. So when you talk about depth, this is why I'm so ecstatic about the depth we have. And to me, this is the best slot receiver in the division at this point. If you want to put, I mean, the hard part is you could easily say, I know we said Gesicki's that and how elite he is, but I would think Waddle would be more that slot guy in Miami, or at least that target hog. So that will be the only competition for best in division for me with Elijah Moore.
Yeah. Jeremy, you
He's
got
real
Crowder,
tall.
McKenzie. Jeremy, you got
That-
Crowder, McKenzie, and Marquez Stevenson on the Bills. What do you think about that? I like Isaiah McKenzie, but this Crowder situation is not going to make his fantasy stats pretty relevant. What do you think about? Tell me about the Buffalo Bills slot receiver situation.
Yeah, Marquez Stevenson's a return guy. It's kind of weird they have him listed in the slot. He's a pretty big guy. I think he's like 6 foot 190. He kind of could play outside. I don't know. But I like Jamison Crowder this year. We saw what Cole Beasley did for Josh Allen for multiple years. You know, he's kind of that underneath guy that's kind of open a lot due to the route combinations. He just gets open against linebackers or in the middle of the field. Jamison Crowder's also pretty good at this. So if he gets used in the same aspects, Jamison Crowder could arguably be one of the better fantasy slot receivers. As far as talent goes, he's definitely not there. Obviously, you could argue, like Andy said, Elijah Moore's definitely more talented. If Waddle you want to put in that slot, it would be better. Jacoby Myers, I think, is probably a little bit more talented than Jamison Crowder is. But Crowder's been an underrated guy, especially in PPR leagues. So I think there's potential to be very fantasy viable. Like I said, it depends on if Josh Allen kind of glues to him how he did with Cole Beasley in those short yardage areas, or that 3rd and 10, you know, when he's 8 yards down the field, just sitting there wide open and he gets the ball to him, he makes one move or two, you know, that's kind of how the Bills offense kind of ran for a while there. So it depends on how, like we said earlier, and I talked to James about James Cook and then all these other guys, it depends on how everybody gets used and if Crowder can stay healthy. But I really think Crowder is he's kind of a value, I think, depending on where he's going in your drafts, or even a person that you could trade for that a lot of people just aren't really sold on because Jamison Crowder's had his injury issues. So He's a guy I like. I think he could be a top 36 guy if everything falls right.
Yeah,
We need so much from Zach Wilson.
we do.
Guys.
We do.
Fair
I'll sit here and I will say
I love
that
Crowder. I love that type of player, like Landry, but discounted. And then I was going to ask if Braxton Barrios is still on the depth chart, but for the amount of hope we're investing in, Zach Wilson not being exactly what we saw last year.
I think Barrios is just going to be a special teams ace.
Wilson,
Don't you think?
you're asking him not to make mistakes. You have talent and depth at every level. You just can't be that gunslinger. You got to stay in the concept of the play.
The only thing I'm worried about is that
I think good players can carry a good season with a quarterback not making mistakes. We're talking about multiple players able to hit the heights of their game with a quarterback we don't think can throw accurately at the NFL level. Wow. Sorry, I know this is off.
Hold on, because I got blasted
from the show, but
I got blasted for
saying
Zach Wilson was in. No, that's fine. I just find it. I appreciate the confirmation because I said he was pretty inaccurate, and I kept getting told how accurate he was and how he was the greatest passer of all time coming into the league, and I didn't understand it. So I'm happy to hear you say that.
He was okay in college. I don't do a lot of quarterback stuff in college stats because they're really difficult, believe it or not, and I like easy stuff. But no, everything I can find says no, not really. And in the NFL, that was his main problem. He couldn't hit him. I mean, I think Diggs really helped. Josh Allen clearly improved, like we were talking about before. He clearly improved. It's one of the most impressive things I've seen, honestly, at any position. That improvement is historic. I've never seen a guy go from there to that level of jump at the hardest position. But I think Diggs helps with that. That's one of Diggs that we know Diggs can do. He can make you more accurate. He's an incredibly catchy receiver, to put a word on it. He'll get that. I think Thielen similarly helped out Kirk Cousins, honestly, but he gets underrated by it. And I love Elijah Moore. I was going to say when you were talking, one of my favorite things about Garrett Wilson is everyone likes Elijah Moore less. He's now the 2. It's like, I know about that. I like Garrett Wilson, but Elijah Moore's, I've never seen him not be good. I like Elijah Moore a lot. But, is he Stephon Diggs? Can all 3 of them do what Stephon Diggs does to an extent to improve that? I don't know.
I have been grabbing a couple shares of Zach Wilson. Anyone that was,
it's cheap enough. I get it. Yeah.
I mean, it's worth it. It's especially, obviously it's super flex having that second quarterback. I mean, even if he's like quarterback 14, that's an advantage, and if all I have to pay is a late first, second for it, he's still 22 years old. I mean, I'll pay that to give it a shot. I mean, I just had a draft where I took Ritter, Willis, and who was the other? Who's the one that got drafted by Carolina? Corral. Correct. So I took all 3 of them right in a row at 201, 202, and 203. They're quarterbacks in Superflex. Their value could triple.
And that's why I get squeamish around the receivers. I like the receivers, and I normally argue the receiver can do it independently of the quarterback. I guess that's the question. How much was Allen? That's the best example we have. How much of it was Allen? How much of it was Diggs? That's almost the answer here. Because I believe Garrett Wilson's pretty decent, definitely as a prospect, and I think Elijah Moore is pretty phenomenal. But then a little bit of it has to come from the quarterback. 52% completion rate last year. We're talking Josh Allen looks kind of good rookie year compared to Zach Wilson. And I know he improved down the stretch, but that's points, not so much ability, right?
Their style and approach is wildly different too, though, because Josh Allen, his throws were just always trying to put 100 miles per hour on everything. So he was on target just way high, usually was his problem.
Calming down.
So you can see how those could be corrected a little bit. Zach Wilson needs to get out of the pocket. He needs to have the whole play deteriorate to have any type of success. You should run and this is the problem with why I say, can he just not make mistakes? Can he just trust his offense and his OC and his talent around him, because you have arguably, like I said, I keep saying arguably, but you have a dynamic running team now. You have dynamic receivers all around you. Can you just stay within the concept of the play?
That's what made me.
I'd almost rather have Trent Dilfer right now.
That's why Crowder
Mac
sent
Jones.
me off on it, because Crowder's got that 78% slot rate. He's a guy operating that close, and they don't really have much for a tight end position. But like Elijah Moore last year was only in the slot 28%. Like they're not putting him somewhere easy for him. As far as not making mistakes, he's got to get him the ball 10 yards down the field or beyond. Like if it's accuracy, it's hard not to make a mistake with accuracy if you have to be accurate to hit your guys. And I don't think Garrett Wilson plays. He's not, Mike Gesicki to get us back on track. He doesn't operate 3 yards down. I mean, I guess Deontay Johnson switched it up there for Ben. But sorry, I mean derail.
I think
it's just
a lot
fascinating to
does.
me how much hope you can invest in.
Yeah, I think a lot does have to come from Zach Wilson too, though, and it's partially a mental game. Like he has that almost hero ball thing that Josh Allen had too coming out of college. They both played in a lower level college where they were clearly the best player on the team, and they could, or even on the field most weeks. So like they could literally just run around and do whatever they wanted and then hit a guy 50 yards down the field. And it didn't matter because the closest DB was 2-3 yards away, or their guy was just slightly better, and it was that pure chance. And I think Zach Wilson's going to have to learn that he can't do that. He needs to do what they did with the Bills with Josh Allen. Josh Allen was a lot of mechanics. They'd worked on that a lot. He got a lot better there, but also it was the processing. It was being okay with throwing a 5-yard pass to Cole Beasley, who then makes a move and gets 10 yards. You know what I mean? Like they have to have that process. And Zach Wilson has to understand that, hey, I can give it to Elijah Moore 3 yards down the field and he can get me 15. Do you know what I mean? Like once he gets that and he's okay with just throwing those 5-10 yard dinks instead of trying to throw 25 yards with a Hail Mary or 50 yards down the field into just triple coverage, that will help him with his completion percentage. It'll help him stay on the field and get better. It's just going to be a process. And I think that's where it is. His talent, his upside is huge because of the arm and his ability to play off schedule. But it's the things that keep him on the field that he struggles with. And if they can coach that out of him, I think he'll be.
How much isn't the difference? So what Andy said, maybe they both have the similar problem, but Josh Allen was on target and too far down.
Yeah.
And
how much do you think?
I don't know.
How much do you think Zach Wilson learned from Mike White dumping off 87 passes every game? To a running back. How much do you think that he said, "Oh, this is how it's supposed to be done here"? Like,
unfortunately, not enough.
Well, we'll see what happens there. But let's move on to the tight end situation. We already talked about Mike Gesicki a little bit here. Pete kind of
constantly. All we do is talk about Mike Gesicki.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
I don't think we even need to talk about the position. I think we can just call this the Gesicki hour.
We've got our elite receiver. We're good.
That's it.
I think Hunter Henry was pretty good last year, so I'll go with Patriots. I mean, Dawson Knox had a good year. I mean, he scored like 35 touchdowns, but that was why. But
Andy, you got the Jets here. You got C.J. Uzomah, Tyler Conklin, and they just drafted Jeremy Rucker. Conklin is a blocking back. He's on the field all the time, but I think he's a pretty good. I mean, he may be the best tight end on his team in reality. And then you got Jeremy Rucker, who he seems like to be the future of this team. But Uzomah is a pretty good player too. It's a good problem to have. They have all these. I mean, the depth on this team is unbelievable. So, what do you think about the Jets tight end situation?
I think it was pretty remarkable, like I said, what they did in the free agency period. I mean, Irv Smith was getting pushed for time by Conklin. Injury, and then Conklin goes out and gets himself 87 targets last year. So this isn't a slouch by any stretch of the imagination. I know he's seen more as a blocking guy, but fine, whatever. He can still go out and catch you a pass or two. There was definitely some intrigue and excitement for Conklin from a receiving standpoint. Uzomah's just continuously been the overachiever, underappreciated kind of guy. He's just giving you consistency for the last couple of years in Cincinnati. And then as the fourth, fifth, maybe even sixth option in that offense, he was the one that seemingly kept coming up with the play when they needed it, whether it be the third down reception, move the chains, whatever it was. So you had those two alone, veterans, whatever. And then you go and you get Jeremy Rucker, who kind of like Uzomah is used to being overshadowed by better offensive weapons in the receiving core. He's a hometown kid. He's a local kid. Sal Lito actually, I think, used to babysit him, something like that. So, there's some family ties to the fantasy community as well there. But, I mean, this is just another guy. This was a weak tight end class. And you can make your argument for who should have been the tight end one in it. I know McBride is probably in the tier by himself, but you can make the case for a lot of guys from Dulcich to Rucker. So
Dulcich.
I'm not disappointed with this receiving core at tight end that the Jets have. But when you look at what New England has right off the bat with Jonnu and whatchamacallit, help me out here, Bob.
Hunter Henry.
There you go. I think I would take that over the Jets just by a notch. And then when you mentioned what Dawson Knox was able to do, I think they're all kind of in that same tier, which is easily a tier or two below the elite level of Gesicki. So I just think all around, it's pretty evenly, distributed division.
Yeah.
He's almost one of those guys that has me convinced that fantasy is not targeting the best players. He's clearly one of the best. Like, he's such a good player, and it just doesn't matter most of the time for us. And also, not to do Bob's job for him, but yeah, I think Hunter Henry is the best tight end in this division. I was expecting to point that out, but
well, Buffalo's got Dawson Knox.
I think I forgot about him.
Dawson Knox, O.J. Howard. They just drafted Jalen Weidemeyer. Jeremy, tell me about the Bills' tight end receiving core real fast.
I'd sell Dawson Knox if you can, just because I think his value is absurdly high. I mean, he scored nine touchdowns last year, and I do not expect that to be repeated, especially bringing in O.J. Howard, another tight end who's a skilled, athletic tight end who is a little bit, probably maybe more built to be the red zone target.
Is he going on his 5th year? Because it could be a breakout year.
Let's look that up. Hold on. Gotta look that up. What is he going on to? It might be. I mean, probably he's off his rookie contract. That's why he was gone. But
yeah,
he's too far down these ranks to even find other areas tight end.
Going on his 6th. He's going on his
6-year breakout.
But he did
6-year breakout.
Yeah, but he did miss 2020. So.
He did have 6 touchdowns, though, in 2017 when he came in, so he could steal Knox's. Yeah, I mean, there's some talent there. I just think it's going to get real messy, and I think Knox is overvalued because of his touchdown percentage that he scored last year, and I'm just not even in on it as a Bills fan. I think it's great that they brought in Howard and Knox because you might see some more 12 personnel in the red zone, which is good as a football aspect for the Bills, so I'll take that. But as far as fantasy goes, I kind of just avoid the Bills' tight end room.
To be fair, I do think the Bills is an offense where a tight end can just live on touchdowns alone. They get to the red zone, they look for their big guy touchdown, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
But I completely agree, but Knox is probably still going to do that a little bit.
What happens is what works so well for them too is that Knox is very good at that slip out. So as long as he can catch the ball, which he struggled with at times, but they're really good at that almost like the fake power sweep, and then Josh just kind of tosses it over everybody as Knox slips out.
Right.
So it's a lot of schemed open touchdowns. So I mean, there could be some survival there, and with how bad the tight end position is, I guess you could argue that. I just worry
he had a broken hand last year for a while.
Yeah.
And he played through it. So I mean,
he threw a touchdown pass with a broken hand too.
Yes, I remember that.
That was the game that he threw that. So I mean, he's a tough kid. It's tough because I do feel like Peter said, I mean, they could have a tight end who lives on touchdowns, but I also hate to kind of target those guys because that is 90 or
not if
40% of his. It's just tough to count on it just because of what it is.
If you got to pay for it, it's not worth it. That's all tight ends, right? They're going to be startable at some point, but you don't want to pay for it.
Yeah. So our last situation here for tight ends. Bob, tell me about the Patriots tight end offense. Tight end.
Well, I mean, everyone else praised Hunter Henry, so I mean,
he's pretty much got it done.
Unfortunately, I had gone the Jonnu Smith route when they were pretty much the same cost.
Oh no!
A couple of years ago. Yeah, Hunter Henry's he's been a valuable asset, and that's what Mac Jones looks for down in the red zone when he's not handing it off to Harris or Stevenson is Henry. So I'm gonna just be a homer and take him as the best.
It's striking, like even after that Jonah Smith Hunter Henry offseason, both are a little disappointing, but Henry was somewhat good. Like you still get Henry in the same place on Underdog. Like no one cares.
It's just his name. It's just unexciting, you know. Hunter Henry. They're
He's
just
not
like,
with Phillip Rivers anymore.
Yeah, who's that guy? Bob, do you think Jonnu Smith has any hope, or do you think he's pretty dead? I'm having this inside quarrel because he is super cheap as far as like dynasty startups or anything right now, or like anywhere. Like you can get him real late, and it's like
let's see where his value is at.
I don't know what it is on. Like I just know I did one recently, and I got him. I think like real late, like late teens, 20s, like real late.
I mean, honestly, for as late as you can get him, his athletic profile probably means yeah. If you can roster him, it's probably fine. But I don't have.
I just feel like is it pointless? You know, you're giving up on some other guys that are like.
I'm really going far down the list here.
That's what I'm saying. Like he's way down there, and it's just like, is there any hope? Like, is it even worth it, or are you just throwing it at a roster clogger? You know, like.
He's fairly easy to cut if it doesn't happen. To be fair, but yeah,
he's not even worth a point in the trade calculator.
Wow.
I mean, he's hanging down there with Hayden Hurst, Harrison Bryant, Dan Arnold.
So let's use those guys. Who would you rather have out of them? You know what I'm saying? Like,
give me the name at that point. Give me Jonnu Smith in an offense that could throw a couple of touchdowns to a tight end.
He's the highest drafted, best college production. I mean, yeah, Jonah wins that.
Yeah, I mean, double the price. I mean, Evan Ingram is 3 times the price of Jonnu Smith.
Evan Ingram's been for a big year this year, I think.
I mean, I still keep getting Evan Ingram anyway. Like he's the one that's fallen, but still getting targets. Like he still gets 20% of the targets. He can't catch the ball is a problem. I'll admit, but
he'll be the linchpin of that offense this year. So
I mean, who would you rather have, Dalton Schultz or Gesicki?
Gesicki. The answer is always Gesicki.
Is that even a question?
Well,
I don't know. Schultz is really the
they're
better
ranked back to back in the trade calculator.
Schultz, to be fair, Schultz got targets as opposed to Knox getting touchdowns. But I just go with a guy who's done it a little bit more often. That's how I ended up on Henry over Jonah because Henry had done it before.
I mean, Dawson Knox, Noah Fant, or Trey McBride.
Is it Dynasty?
Yeah,
Trey McBride.
What is the other thing people play at redraft? Is that what it is called?
I think
Best ball, I think it's called something.
Oh, basketball.
Yeah, it's the one. Yeah.
Basketball. Well, so across the board, I think on the depth charts wise, I think we all like the Jets as the most even team, but the Bills are the most powerful team in this division as far as that goes. Just the defense plays a lot in these situations, and the Bills and the Patriots are far and above everybody else here as far as defense is concerned. But as far as these depth charts are concerned, it's I love this is one thing I love doing is this is why I'm doing this podcast and inviting you guys on here because I love looking at depth charts and the fluidity that comes every year with guys moving and where they go, where they fit in these offense, and the puzzles that are created with guys shifting around and where they end up. So this is we can get into fullbacks and kick returners and punt returners and all that kind of stuff. But, that's those guys really don't mean much unless you have scoring for that kind of stuff. But across the board, this is just something I love to do, and I really appreciate you guys coming on tonight to talk about this. Any final words about start with Jeremy, the Bills? Tell me about what you think. What's the prediction for the Bills this year?
Well, I think they're going to win the AFC East. I think it's still their division. I think they're probably one of the better teams in the NFL balance-wise. I think the draft went well. I think they definitely addressed that cornerback 2 position. They still have a good slot corner in Tyron Johnson. And then I think that they're just pretty well built team. I think aside from the OC change, it's mostly a turnover for the rosters. So I think that I think it's Super Bowl or bust again for another year. And I see them winning double digit. I mean, I think they'll be up in the 13, 14 win range, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Because they'll probably lose a game or two they're supposed to win because, that's what they do. So
they drafted a punter that was the best punter in all of college. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. These guys,
their punter turnover, their punter turnover is just absurd lately. I don't know why. They went from Bajorquez. They had somebody highly named punter, and then they went to Bajorquez, and then they went to who was last year? It was a Dolphins punter the year before. I don't remember what's his name.
I know his name. I forgot it though.
I had it too. I forgot it. And then now this kid. So who knows? Maybe the punter wins them games. I don't know.
Yeah. Andy, what do you think the Jets are going to happen this year? What's going to happen with the Jets?
I think it's a new era. I think it's I think we have right pieces in place from upper management to coaching staff to talent on the field. And what excites me more than anything is the way the league has gone, that rookies are coming in and having a dramatic impact. You just added 4 day one starters at valuable positions this team has needed for a long time. When you look at that edge rusher, you look at the cornerback in Sauce Gardner, the receiver that everybody's been clamoring for a while. So I just think, like, if this were 10 years ago, I'd be excited about the future. I think the way the league is now, I'm excited for this year. I think it could be that quick of a turnaround, especially with how much talent they've added. So I think, this is just such a competitive league. When you talk about all the quarterbacks, right now the edge in the division has to go to Josh Allen just because he's been there, done that. That alone is worth a few wins, especially in the playoffs or getting to the playoffs. So I still think until somebody beats him in this division, it's theirs. But I don't think it's a slam dunk. I don't think this is the AFC East of a few years ago where it was just give the title to the Patriots before we even roll the balls out. So I'm excited to see what happens, though.
Yeah. Bob, tell me about the Patriots.
January 8th. That is going to be the game for the division.
They don't have Monday Night Football, but they should that week. That's what they should have. I think they have Sunday Night Football.
No, they flex whatever the standalone game is. So January 8th, the Patriots are at Buffalo. And I think that this division will be tight enough that is going to decide the division.
Yeah,
I would hate it as a fan and be nerve-wracking, but I would love it. I think that'd be great as a football fan.
I mean, I think the Jets are still 1 year away. And the Dolphins, I'm not putting anything on Tua. So,
Andy, you need to draft a better draft connection with your 101 pick here. That's what Joe Castman's.
That's not nice.
Has it been mine this whole time? I'm saying I think it's you guys.
I think it's, I don't know. I think it's my kid. I have 18 kids and then 5 dogs that are playing fucking sleepy rings or something like that. So I think mine's going in and out too. I don't know. I think it's across the board. I'm gonna have to fix that or get a new router or something. I don't know, but who knows?
Well, as Bob pointed out, mine's hamster powered, and there's also a kid in the next room playing Xbox. I mean, it could be me. Not me is.
Oh, but Peter, where are the Dolphins going to end up this year?
I have no idea, man.
South Beach. They're going to end up in South Beach.
I don't understand the teammanship, but I can respect it. Everyone's got to have something to cheer for. It's amazing to me. Fantasy football lets you be fans of players so that you can go across all these teams and find great players. You got Dawson Knox throwing a touchdown with a broken hand. How do you not want to be a fan of that guy across team boundaries? Having said that, it's the Bills and the Patriots division pretty obviously, and I think the Bills are probably going to keep kicking the Patriots' ass because, frankly, they've earned it. It's been long enough, and they deserve a little bit of time on top. But the Patriots are going to make it competitive. I think the other two teams, it comes down to, do you think the younger quarterback we've seen less of can have a more dramatic improvement, or the quarterback who's been in 3 years, who's been bit better, but not quite everything we expected, can be improved by a couple added weapons, not through the draft, but proven receivers. Well, from last year's draft and also from another team. And honestly, I don't know. I don't think there's an equation for that. I think there's a lot of hope, and we tend to get overly hopeful when we're looking for edges. Outside of that, it's just draft cost. And I think, honestly, I have more concern with, I know you're asking about the Miami, so I'll stick with that. Miami's, both of their receivers I'm touting here, I drafted in the first 12 in Dynasty. It's just too much for both of them, so you kind of got to pick your poison. And that's the difficult part. I think both can still be productive. And in terms of fantasy, if you just lean age in Dynasty and you take Tyreek Hill because he's more likely to produce those number one numbers. Mike Gesicki is a perpetually disappointing elite level tight end hit. It's just the way it is. But no, I do think Miami can have a better year than we've seen. I just don't want to get too invested in believing that what we hope for every bad team can happen this particular year. I do think they've made good moves to try and make it happen with that trade. Hopefully they've improved the rest of the offense as well. I wouldn't know. I just care about the 4 skill position players. That's it.
As a Dolphins fan, I'm kind of I like the changes. I like what they've added, but I think investing all that in Tyreek Hill is, he's an older guy, and when you're a guy who relies on speed and that's his main weapon, when you start getting up in age, you start having some cramps and some pulls and some strains, and it's all it takes is for him to be out a couple of weeks, and that whole team pretty much falls right in the shitter. So.
I think Waddle's a decent backup plan, but I get what you mean. To be fair,
I mean, if you compare Waddle's numbers to Jamar Chase's last year, they actually were very similar. And the cost is
exactly.
Yeah, and the cost between the two of them is substantially different.
Yeah,
right. Well, guys, thanks a lot for doing these, the first of a series of 8 divisional breakdowns here. I really appreciate you guys.
Oh, this is the first one. That's terrible. We're going to make it. Please watch the other ones. They're probably good. Like we last minute replacement.
Go in reverse order.
Guys he was talking about. We tried our best, but the other ones are probably good. Keep watching.
Hashtag team old guys.
NFC East next week. I got a couple guys already kind of penciled in for the teams. I need one more guy, but it's actually I have a girl and a couple guys, so we'll see what happens. I think we all know who Steph Smalls is going to take the Giants. Shane Manila is going to take the Eagles. We're going to go from there and build up, and we'll see what happens here, guys. But again, thanks for spending your Tuesday night here with me and talking some depth charts, which I love to do, and I really appreciate you guys coming on. So
thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, guys.
It's a pleasure for you to meet me. It's fine.
This is the hat tip from Peter.
And the hat tip from Peter. It's the best thing in the world. I love it. It's my favorite gift on the internet.
I'm going to go buy one of those hats so I can just tip it every time I'm on.
Best decision I ever accidentally made. I'll do it.
Well, this is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast, and this is what I like to do in my free time. And thank you guys for making my night. Have a good night, everyone.